This podcast is all about you and your journey in music. We talk about how you got to where you are today, and how you got into music, and your journey through Less Than Jake. And obviously, you got some new stuff coming out with your solo, a couple songs that you're releasing. You have a book out. You got a lot going on, so I'd love to hear all about it.
Cool.
From correct me if I'm wrong, the research I did, you grew up in Port Charlotte, Florida, and went to high school there. Is that where you were born and raised?
So yeah, I was born in Michigan, but my family moved when I was about 6.5, 7 years old down to Florida. My dad relocated to get a job down there. And it's crazy where all the little things in life take you. He had a really good job in Michigan, but he was working for Chrysler, and there was a auto industry collapse in 1980, and we moved to Florida, and it's like all the pieces of the puzzle from there. In Port Charlotte, the little sleepy community on the Gulf Coast, sandwiched between Fort Myers and Sarasota, Florida. That's where I met the original drummer of Less Than Jake, Vinny Fiorello. Him and I met in high school, and from there we traversed to Gainesville, and that's where we met the rest of the guys. It just all those little pieces. I had a choice of going to 3 different universities. Roger, our bass player, had a choice to go to different universities, and somehow we all ended up there. It's one of those
magnet.
What are
they called? Magnet moments.
I try not to think too much about fate because it'll trip you out sometimes, but it's
sure.
pretty amazing.
That is so awesome. Well, what have you always been a guitar player? I mean, what was the first instrument you learned how to play?
So my mom and dad were musicians. So I grew up around music. I was constantly going to, my earliest memories were, dingy nightclubs and Elks clubs and bar mitzvahs and weddings and VFW halls, you name it. My parents would get hired to play birthday parties, whatever, retirement parties, graduation parties. Dad did it for a number of years by himself. My mom joined him when I was real young. So basically, as early as I knew, they were both together. My mom sang and played tambourine, and my dad worked this crazy primitive drum machine with his feet and had an amp and PA and guitar. And so,
whoa, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So like they did that at night a couple times a week. It was to supplement the income, but really it ended up at times being the income, because dad was really doing well in Michigan. And then we got down to Florida. He even did better. Like he was, he did real estate. So he was really known in real estate, but he was also known, my mom and dad, from singing. So between the two, they killed it. So my earliest memories were around music. We were immersed in it. It was always around. My parents didn't have any filter with me. It didn't matter if it was Slayer or Stryper, religious or satanic death metal. They didn't care. And everything in between. Neil Diamond, the Beach Boys, Barry Manilow. I grew up on Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. Like all music was immersed in my home. So when my brother was about 13, he's 2 years younger than me. He got this guitar and that he never played. It just sat under the bed. And when I was going to University of Florida, I was 4 months shy on my 18th birthday. I started there. I did the summer course at University of Florida. Okay. So I got there that summer, and as I was leaving, I said, you know what, I'm going to take that guitar under the bed. And my dad had taught me a few chords, G, C, D, but I was never really a guitar player. And I got up to Gainesville and I started looking for bands to sing for, because I was singing. That's Vinny and I, our old drummer, had a band in Port Charlotte that never really did anything. We were just kind of like garage band. But got to Gainesville, started doing auditions. I could not find anybody that was hearing what I was hearing in my head. And I just started putting on punk records and learning to play. So basically that fall of my college year, I had been really playing guitar for 2 or 3 months. And when Vinny and I did our first demo together, and that was how it started.
Oh, so that high school band that you were in, you didn't play guitar. You were just the singer?
No, I was just the screamer. It was actually a hardcore band. So
really? Yeah, that's amazing. I'm actually really curious on the fact that your parents had a band, kind of. I mean, were they writing original songs, playing original songs, or was it a lot of covers? Or
no, it was all top 40 stuff from the 50s on up. All the standard stuff, Twist and Shout and Louie Louie, all the way up to whatever was on the radio. My mom would sing, Whitney Houston, and they would kill it. Like they could harmonize together. They were absolutely amazing.
That is so awesome. Did you guys ever have them on a Less Than Jake record, or would you ever put them on like a solo album?
They weren't on a record, but they actually, we do these hometown shows in Gainesville called the Wake and Bake Festival, where all our like super fans converge on Gainesville for a weekend. We haven't done it in a couple years, but mom and dad, one night the theme was, we did a show where it was just karaoke. So we played our Less Than Jake songs, and we had fans get up and sing, and my parents got up and sang a song and blew the roof off the place. People lost their minds.
Did they know it was your parents, or did you announce that? Or,
okay. I introduced it. Well, everyone there knew it was my mom and dad.
That's so rad.
Can I swear on here? I didn't mean to.
Yeah. Of course.
The S bomb. But yeah, no, everybody already knew that it was my mom and dad. Like before they got up there. I say everybody. The majority of people. There's not too many 65-year-olds hanging out in a smoke-filled, dingy punk rock bar. But
well, that's why I was confused. Like I didn't know if that's what the reaction was. Like who? Oh my gosh, who are these older people just like destroying it on this Less Than Jake song?
The super fans of the band, my mom and dad have been coming to enough shows in Florida over the years that people know who they are.
Okay, right on. Okay. So you get to University of Florida, you pick up this guitar, and then you start just trying to play along to these punk rock records. And then how do you get back involved with Vinny, and then the band kind of start going?
Well, so I went up there, and he was doing community college down in the Port Charlotte area. Okay. And I just kept telling him, I'm like, this is where we need to be. Like, I always felt the connection with his lyrics, and I was starting to write songs before I got to Gainesville. My senior year of high school, I was, when I say I started playing guitar when I got to Gainesville, that's when it really accelerated. But I was picking up guitars, and I think I was still in high school when I wrote a song called Lucky Day that was on our first, one of our first 7 inches. So I was putting melodies to chords and stuff. And, I got to Gainesville, and it was 3 hours north, but I might as well have landed in Tokyo or in London, England. It was so far removed from Port Charlotte. Port Charlotte was just this kind of retirement community, kind of conservative, and Gainesville was just this liberal mecca of melting pot. There was over people from 100 different countries, musicians, artists, hippies, sports. There was everything you could imagine was in Gainesville. University of Florida, the Gator football. So I got up there, and it was like there was a show every night. I mean, I was seeing Jawbreaker, Green Day. I mean, all my favorite bands before they became household names.
Sure.
And I'm telling Vinny, like, dude, something's in the water up here. You got to come up. And he moved up in May '92. He transferred his credits up to the University of Florida and enrolled there. And we played our first show on Tuesday, July 14th, 1992 at Club Velvet in Gainesville, Florida.
Wow. Were you guys playing under the name Less Than Jake at that time, or is it?
We were. We had another bass player. I had found this bass player around April of about a month before Vinny moved there. I had found this guy, and I met him at a punk show or something. Or maybe I met his brother first. But anyways, these two brothers used to always hang out, and they were Todd and Chris. My brother and I are Todd and Chris. My brother's name is Todd.
Oh, cool.
But it was reversed. The older brother there was Todd. I'm the older brother here. But
okay.
So this guy Chris was playing bass with us for about the first 6 months of the band. We did like 12 shows with him as Less Than Jake. Never recorded anything with him. And I think our last show was October of that year with Chris. And it was around August of '92 that the new school year had started. And I was living in an apartment with a buddy of mine, and his sister and her friend, who we went to high school with, they were now college freshmen. And we had a room open in the apartment that they put a couple beds in, and they were sharing a room. Mm-hmm. And one night I get home from school, and the roommate's sitting there. She's like, man, I met this guy, and he's an amazing musician. You should really meet him. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Didn't really think much about it. And it was maybe 2 weeks later, I come home, same deal, come home from school, and there's this guy in my living room, and she introduced me to him, said, this is Roger. I said, cool, yeah, I heard you play. He's like, yeah. I said, well, come in my room. I had my guitar and my amp, and he picked up the guitar, and he started singing and playing. I'm like, that's my dude. Like, I knew, like immediately, I'm like, sure. That. And at that point, we we're starting to have a little falling out with the other guy. He wasn't kind of sharing our vision for where we wanted the band, and we played, you know, a couple more shows with him, and then December of '92 we had our first rehearsal with Raj, and then ended up playing our first show in March of '93 with Roger.
Okay. And when Roger joined the band, were you guys did you have a horn section yet, or was that all added later?
Yeah, so he came aboard, and then around the same time, January of '93, there was another woman that I knew from the punk scene. Her name was Jessica. Jessica played sax.
Okay.
So we had her play, and she played sax on one song on our first 7-inch. It was 5 songs, 3 songs on one side, 2 on the other. She played saxophone on one song on that record. That came out in May of '93. And then Buddy, our trombone player who's still with us, he joined in August of '93.
Okay. And was there what was the reason behind adding the horn? Was it just something
there was, you know, we were listening to stuff like Fishbone and Mighty Mighty Boss Tones,
okay,
and the Toasters, as well as some of the you know, more two-tone bands, the Specials and English Beat and New York Citizens, and so a lot of these bands were influences. But really for us, we were coming more from a punk rock thing, and like there was a band from England called Snuff that we were really influenced by.
Okay,
and,
yeah,
and
they had a record on Fat. I remember them just from one of those Fat Records compilations that came out.
Yeah, they ended up being on Fat years later. Yeah. They were on this small label out of England, and they were like gods to us. And we heard them, and like, they have horns. Cool. We want to put horns to this punk sound that we're hearing, you know? And then we incorporated the ska thing along with it, and, you know, just started playing shows.
Wow. And then with that first 7-inch, was that something that you guys like hand pressed, or like?
Yeah, we hand pressed.
Wow.
Jessica used to work at the Arts and Crafts Center at the University of Florida. So we had, she had gotten some free paint and different stuff, and we ended up screening all of those. I think we did 500, maybe the first, and it was on this little label called No Idea. I say little label. They were like, you know, heroes of ours. They were called No Idea Records out of Gainesville.
Oh yeah.
And I remember, you know, this is going back to like when we gave the masters, we gave the recordings to VAR, who owned the label. He took me aside and he was like, dude, this is like this is gonna sell. Like, holy shit. Like, he was like, I'll never forget, he's like, it's like if the Outfield went punk rock, you know, the band that sang Josie's on a Vacation Far Away, the Outfield, you know, I don't want to lose your love tonight, or use your love. He's like, because Roger and I were harmonizing, and he's like, it's got this 80s thing to it, but it's punk rock. He's like, this is awesome. And hearing that from him, like, that made me kind of go, this thing could have legs, you know? And we put that record out, and we sold out of that quickly and did a bunch more presses. And, you know, Gainesville happened pretty quickly for us. We started building a local following quickly. I mean, our shows went from like, you know, 20, 30 people to like, it seemed like the next week we'd play, there'd be 80 people. And then like, within 6 months, we were selling out the Hardback, which was the local punk club that, you know, legally it probably held 150, but they'd cram 250 in there. You know,
of course,
people just completely hammered. And you know, from there we graduated to the next venue that was the 550 seat, and that was like the mid-level national acts that would come in. And then the big venue was the 1500 seater, the Florida Theater. And then from there, you'd go over to the arena on the UF campus where like Tom Petty would play, you know.
Wow. So was that all? You guys were just gaining this fan base there within Gainesville. You weren't playing outside of it because you were what, all still in school?
At first, no. We were just doing Gainesville for maybe the first, I don't know, month or two. But then we got an offer to go to Daytona with a band from Gainesville. We opened for them in Daytona. And we blew the roof off the place. And I remember getting an offer. Another band had wanted us to play there maybe 2 months later. And the show we did with the band in Gainesville, there might have been 100 people there. When we got back to Daytona, there was at least 100 people there just to see us. And then we came back maybe a month later, and they had to cap the door. People could not get in. And our shows then were, musically, we weren't great yet, and the songs weren't great, but the energy was insane. Our mouths were insane, the stuff we were saying, and the show was insane. Like, we would go to like thrift stores, and I had this spiel like, "Hi, we're from the local school here, and we're doing a toy drive. Here's $10. Can we take every stuffed animal you have? Yeah, go ahead, kid, take it." I give him $10, and fucking we'd clear out the whole place, And so like at the end of the night, there'd be like a foot of stuffing in these clubs. We'd have stuffed animals. We had dudes cruising around in rubber boats. We had the toilet paper guns came pretty early. We were shooting those off. So the show was a spectacle, and it was fun. People had fun. Some of the earliest comments that we still get to this day from parents and grandparents that have taken their kids to the show, and it's the best compliment because it really means something. It holds water. And this is from the early days, like, I'm not too sure about the songs or the music, but your live show, that was a lot of fun, and that's all we ever wanted.
Right. What was the idea behind adding all those kind of funny, like theatrical things to your show?
We all grew up in the 80s where the show was big, the pyro, everything was to excess. And then the 90s rebelled against that. Okay. And we liked a lot of the 90s music. I liked Nirvana, but I didn't really like their show. They were just kind of standing there staring at their shoes. And I was like, I want to take their vibe. I want to take their rawness, that punk rock thing. I don't want there to be boundaries, and I want it to be real, but I want to have that fun of the 80s. We're missing that. That's what I grew up on. That was fun. And I want, when people come to see us play, I want them to leave having a good time.
I love that. And then you kind of took that, and ran with it throughout your whole career. You would go out and you'd wear costumes and stuff prior to the show and be like in the crowd, right, and hanging out. And then, hours later, you'd be the guy on stage playing the headlining set.
Yeah, well, and that's all in my book, all the different costumes. I one night I'd be a baseball player, and remember, I'm attention to detail guy. When I say baseball player, I'd see guys in videos, and I won't name bands, but they'd want to look like a 70s porn star, but they'd be wearing like Reeboks from 95. It's like
right.
everything, but I would catch that. I'm like, that's not authentic. So as the baseball player, dude, I would wear stirrups. They hurt to perform in, but I didn't wear tennis shoes. I would wear baseball cleats. Fuck yeah. I had the wristbands on. I had the glove in the back pocket. I had the eyeliner under the eyes, the baseball cap. I'd have a thing of cotton in my side of my mouth that would look like chewing tobacco. Sure. The whole 9 yards. I would rub mud on the pants so it looked like I slid into home base. And then the very next night, I would look like a trucker that you saw walking out of the urinal at a truck stop at 3 a.m. Like,
is that the cover of the book?
Yeah.
Is that one of the? Oh my God! Yeah, that's such a hilarious picture.
I would pad my stomach to make me look fatter. I'll never forget my mom coming to see us early on, and she's like, "I don't know what you're going for here. You're such a good-looking kid, and you look like you're a 40-year-old man." Which is funny now because I am a 40-year-old man.
Sure. But so all of that started that early on with the band. Of those antics. That's hilarious.
It started out of boredom because we didn't have this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So what would you do? You'd pull into Tucson, Arizona at 2 p.m. You drove all day. You're bored out of your mind. You're out of weed. You're going, what the hell are we going to do for the next 6 hours till we load in, right? So you look around, you start walking. You don't have GPS. You start walking. You go, there's a thrift store. I found my sanity in thrift stores. So I'd walk in these places and I would just be trying on wigs and be like, that's hilarious. It'd be like 25-cent wigs.
Sure.
This obsession grew into, I'm not kidding you. I had, like those huge tubs, you'll put like Christmas and
right, yeah,
like you get them at Walmart, like big tubs.
Right.
I had like 6 or 8 of those filled with costumes that we were taking the road.
So you would just rotate through?
Yeah, I would just rotate through, and I was getting everything from, I'd find, thrift stores are great because everything's outdated by 10 years in there. So I was finding stuff, so it was born out of boredom. And I would wear this stuff like, okay, tonight, it started small. I'd be like, one night I'm just going to wear a wig on stage. And I made sure the wigs looked believable. And I'd be rocking out. And eventually the wig would fall off and you'd see the whole crowd lose their mind. They'd realize that's not the dude's real hair. And then from there, it grew to where like, I want the costumes to be really believable. And like I said, I'd stand back at the bar, I'd be sipping a beer. People would walk by me going, who's the old dude here? You know?
Sure.
And this is before internet. No one really knew what we looked like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then the joke was on them because then their favorite band would hit the stage, the headliner, and it'd be me as a redneck. I'd walk out with a guitar on. What's up, Cleveland? The place would literally lose their mind.
I love that. I think that's so funny. That's the most creative thing ever. Like, especially now that you say it, back, you know, when there wasn't you knew exactly what everybody looked like from the cell phone or from the video. Like, you had to buy the record and be like, oh, okay, that's what Chris from Less Than Jake looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, so it just bore out boredom, and that was really it. And we had, the road isn't easy. You have to find the right people. Bands break up for a number of reasons. One of the biggest reasons, besides money, is the rigors of the road. I mean, it's especially when you're touring on a shoestring budget in a van with 6 or 8 guys. People get on your nerves. It's tough out there. And we just, as much as I look back and I remember some sleepless nights and I remember some turmoil here and there, what I mostly remember is the laughter. It was a constant hilarity because that's the only way you could really get through it without losing your mind. It just constantly had to be funny. And I was, a big component of that because I would go to these thrift stores and I'd try to make it, some kind of comic relief.
With those earlier tours, like how often were you guys going out on the road prior to Pezcore coming out? And like, did you juggle the whole school thing, or at what point did Less Than Jake take off and you're like,
everyone did this. I did the school thing till my 3rd year. And so, we toured all of 93 around Florida, all of 94 around Florida. And we were toying with the idea of doing a US tour in 94. But we were smart. We knew we were planting seeds. Again, before social media, what we would do was, there's a compilation and a record label in Milwaukee. We'd get a song on that comp. That guy would press up 1,000 of those in his area. We do one in Chicago. We do one in Detroit. We do one in Saraville, New Jersey. We do one in Tampa. We do one in Atlanta. So we had our songs on these comps, and then we strategically booked our tour along that way. Our first US tour was supporting Pezcore. That was the first outside of Florida tour that we did.
Really?
Yes. So we waited. Pezcore came out in, I believe, March. Was it March of 95? No. Pezcore came out the summer of 95 while we were on tour. It came out right about the time we left. We went out and did on that first US tour. I say first US tour. We toured our asses off in Florida for 2 years and really crafted our show. But our first show outside of Florida, first US date was Atlanta, Georgia. It was June 23rd of 95. We did 48 shows in 50 days on that first tour.
Wow.
And we came home with $3,000. Now that's unheard of for a band, but we were just, I always tell people I found the right guys and girls at that point. We were all very savvy and driven, and the merchandise was just awesome. It was better than the next bands. We sold it cheap. We were engaging. We were at the merch booth. We were making friends city to city. And there was, out of those 48 shows, there might have been a dozen of them that were ill-attended, to where there was like us playing to the bartender and the sound guy, Most of the shows were packed because we were playing, like when we went to Chicago, we were playing with like Slapstick, who they were a huge ska-punk band in Chicago. So like, and then when they'd come to Florida, they'd play with us and we'd put them in front of our audience. So we were really strategic about it. And we did that, toured for Pezcore for all of 95. After that US tour, first one, we went back out. We were home for like a couple weeks, and then we went straight back out. Once we did that first US tour, we were on the road for the next 5 years for 9-10 months out of the year. We never left. It was like, boom, we were doing it. And we were just, the shows just kept coming. We had gotten a booking agent in November of 95 while on tour for Pezcore. We started getting, or take that back, March of 95, we started getting phone calls from Capitol Records around the time Pezcore came out.
Oh, so they were already contacting you off of that first record.
There was already enough buzz in Florida on us and enough songs on compilations that the majors were getting wind of us.
Wow.
So November of 95, we signed with Capitol, continued to tour with Pezcore. Capitol re-released a 5-song EP from songs on Pezcore. They got them remastered. We put them in this little package. It came with a sparkly gun. Which
You have it?
I have everything. This is my memorabilia in this room. It's
Oh my gosh, this is so rad.
So Capitol repackaged it. We did 4 different colors: a green, a blue, an orange, and a red. I don't know if you can see it.
I can. Oh my gosh.
And there's a spark gun. No spark. There's less than Jake on the gun. So Capitol made, I want to say they made around 10,000 of these, and they sent them to every college radio station in America. So now we were starting to get played on college radio. In June of 95 or 96, we had wrapped up touring for Pezcore. We had toured the record for over a year. We went into the studio with a producer to record Losing Streak, and recorded it in June and July of 96. Record came out in November of that year. And then it was just from there, it was one tour to the next. It just was doing this. We went from Losing Streak into Hello Rockview into Borders and Boundaries. It really didn't slow down. It's never really slowed down. We've continued to tour, but those first 5 years and when we got signed, it was insane. I mean, it was just so much was happening, and we were working really, really hard, and none of us really knew what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to sell records like Green Day or Blink, but we knew that we had something special. We knew that we had a fan base that even if we didn't hit that type of those type of sales or maybe audience attendance on our own, that we'd still be able to hang because we had enough fans, you know? So, and we knew that then, and here we are, you know, 20 plus years later, we still got more people now that want to see the band than ever, which is crazy to me, you know, because people have now had children that they bring to the show. And, you know, and more people know about us. It's crazy.
That's so amazing. I'm curious on the Capitol Records signing. Was that like a pretty big moment for you guys? I would imagine. Like, do you remember like telling your parents who were musicians, like, yeah, hey, I mean, like, you know, we have a major label, you know, ready to sign us? Like, that's wild.
For me, it was big. You know, I my grandfather said something to me. My grandfather used to sit there and out of nowhere, he'd go, phone's going to ring, ring, damn phone would ring, like shit like that all the time. and I always just thought it was a stroke of luck. And I was probably 12 or 13. I can't recall to this day what I said or what I did. And my grandfather looked at me and he says, "You got what I have." I never really knew what he meant by that until later in life. And I'm a full believer of sixth sense. I was around 11 years old and I had got braces on. I was in a lot of pain, and my mom had surprised me with Iron Maiden Live After Death, the cassette.
Oh, okay. And
I had always been like, and this kind of goes into my podcast show, how like intense I am with details. I used to love reading liner notes, who produced the record, where they did the record at, like what studio, like who played, you know, percussion on the record, like, you know, who was the art director. Like I was into it all. And, you know, a lot of the same names would correlate with other projects. And it just was fascinating to me. And, you know, I had known all the labels by that point: Atlantic Records, CBS, Epic, Capitol, but Iron Maiden was on Capitol. And I just remember I'm listening to the record on my grandma's couch in headphones, in my Walkman, a cassette, listening to the cassette, not record. And I remember like a whole side, like 40 minutes of this cassette had went by, and I hadn't stopped staring at it. It's a little Capitol Records. It's like a Capitol building. It's their Capitol Records logo. I remember just staring at that logo, mesmerized, like some feeling inside. I never stared at the Atlantic Records logo, the Epic logo, any of them. And lo and behold, we get signed to Capitol. you know.
Whoa.
And there's a ton of other instances like that in my life that I won't go into. I'm sure other people have had similar experiences, but for me, it's such a strong presence. And I'm not one of those like hippie type metaphysical, like, yeah, man, the
Right.
ethos and the this and that. I'm not, but this is just like heavy stuff for me when I think about it. And so like getting back to your question, my mom and dad, everybody I knew was stoked. Like, yeah, like my parents' favorite bands like were the Beach Boys, who were on you know, and the Beatles, who were on
The Beatles,
Capitol,
yeah.
you know. So in December 95, my parents came out for a signing party. I got to take them on the roof of the Capitol Records building. My mom and my dad, they got to walk around. I mean, like, I was a rock star to my mom and dad. They were like, this is the greatest thing in the world, you know. And all through this time though, like, you know, we had already, I think I can speak for the rest of the band. I never really talked to him about this, but like, I had already made it. Like, it had nothing to do with money. Like, I made it when like I was walking out of the punk club in Gainesville and someone wanted my autograph, because nobody was asking for the local guy in a punk band's autograph.
Sure.
Like, I knew something was going on, man. I'm like, this is next level, you know. And it never got to our heads. It was more like, holy shit, like, this is cool, you know. And that to me was like, okay, I've sold out the punk club, check. There was tons of people here, check. I got free beer, check. People were offering me free other things, check. Sure. There's girls that are actually paying attention to me. That never happened in high school, check. Like, what more do you want? You know, like, we all felt like we had made it before we ever left Gainesville. You know, a lot of people equate making it with like headlining an arena tour on your own and making millions of dollars. And to us, it was just like, we got to play with our friends whenever we wanted to, you know. It was great.
I have a question real quick on back to that. When you asked when the person asked you for your autograph, what was the first time that you guys were like legitimately sitting there and being like, we have to do an encore? Like, was that a weird experience for you?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
What I mean? It's like, at what level do you get to the encore?
I think that, you know, for us, and there was a lot of tours where we stopped doing the encore. We'd tell the audience, hey, this is our encore. We're not leaving the stage. We're just going to play 3 more songs. Is that cool? Yeah. Right, and then we leave the stage and they'd still scream for more. It's like, okay, that didn't work. So I don't remember the first time the encore happened, but yeah, it's definitely a weird thing. I think the encore is more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a ritual. It's like a custom. Sure. You go to shows and the audience has to do that, and you come back and it's like, I don't know, it's like the 7th inning stretch. If it wasn't there, people would be pissed, you know? So there's got to be an encore, even if you don't want to do it. And I've seen bands pull the artist trick of like say, we don't do encores. This is the last song, you know? They'll just get pelted with bottles, you know? So you got to play the game, you know?
You got to play the game. I love that. With that with Losing Streak, like, you know, you signed this deal with Capitol Records. Do you feel like there was a more pressure on that album, or was it just like, whatever, you're going to move on and that's going to be the next record?
Losing Streak's like $100,000 demo. I mean, it's raw, man. Like, compared to what was coming out in 96, like, I'm proud of the record. People love it. It's a polished version of Pezcore. Okay. That most of that record was cut live off the floor. We didn't do it to a metronome. There was no Pro Tools. It was cut to tape. Roger and I had the luxury of spending a little more time on the vocals, so the vocals sound a lot better than Pezcore. The harmonies are decent, but no, we just went in and made the record. It was the next batch of songs. Hell, a lot of those songs we were playing on the Pezcore tour. You know, it was before YouTube. You could go out and play songs, and they weren't going to wind up online the next second.
Right.
So we were playing it was just the next batch of songs. We never thought like, oh, this could be a single or this could be a hit. It was just, we just wrote songs, you know, at that point.
Sure. And then you put 2 records out with them, with Capitol, and then Borders and Boundaries was on Fat. Was there...
Borders and Boundaries is supposed to be on Capitol.
Oh, really?
Let me show you something.
I love this. I love this.
So this is actually a promo poster. It's really small, but anyway, this is a promo poster. And at the very bottom here.
Oh, it's got the Capitol building.
Yeah, it's got the Capitol logo on it. So the record was recorded for Capitol, and our A&R guy had left. He had went to Geffen or another label, and we got stuck with this guy who used to be Megadeth's manager, and he came down to the studio, and a lot of people had left in the 5 years. There was a big turnover at Capitol Records. So to this day, Capitol would probably tell you that they dropped us. We'd probably tell you that we left the label. I think it's somewhere in the middle. They didn't know what to do with us. We had put 2 records out that sold, we sold at that point probably 250,000 of Losing Streak and 250,000 of Hello Rock View. But those aren't numbers in the 90s that was going to keep you on a major label for many, many records. Mm-hmm. You had to start selling 500,000, 1 million records. They really needed to, it was all about numbers. It was a business. So we were tracking this record, and finally it just, we had told our manager, like, there's no one at the label. Everyone's gone. Can we get out of this deal? And I think they gladly dropped us. They sold the rights to the record to Fat. So mm-hmm. Mike from Fat Mike picked up the recording cost. We took the record to Fat Records, and it was the greatest thing that could ever happen to us, because we started to shift on that album. We made a rock record. Okay. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of different elements on that record. And because it was on Fat, it got embraced. If it was on Capitol, we would have heard the Sellout thing. So it's hilarious that people like, this is on Fat Records, so it's got cool punk cred to it. When right. In reality, it was the most commercial record we had ever made up to that point.
Whoa, that's fascinating. Oh my gosh. So is that why you guys only did the one record with Fat, or was there a reason?
Well, no. So the reason was we did the record with Fat, and the A&R person who had left Capitol, he had taken a job. I want to say he went to Geffen or something for a minute. He ended up doing A&R at Warner Brothers. His name is Craig Aronson. Okay. And Craig's no longer with us. He had brain cancer in 2014 and passed away. But Craig was our biggest supporter. And I named my son's middle name is Aronson after Craig. So
that's amazing.
Craig is like, was our biggest cheerleader. So he goes to Warner Brothers, and he's like, dude, I want to hear your new demos. Can I at least hear them? And I'm like, of course. He always wanted to hear what we were doing. And I sent him the demos, and he's like, I want to sign you again. We're like, what? He's like, yeah, I want to sign you. And we're like, all right, but this time we're going to get some money.
Sure. Now you have some leverage, right?
Well, it wasn't so much, and we didn't get a huge chunk of money, but we wanted to take enough money to where the label had a stake in us, to where they had to recoup on their investment, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So we went for the gusto. We ended up getting Rob Cavallo, Green Day's producer. We started in New Orleans. We tracked the drums and the bass there per Rob's suggestion. And I could talk for 3 hours about what went on in New Orleans. It was insane. It was like the most rock star thing you could ever imagine. We were in this crazy studio. We were down on Bourbon Street. We had friends in town. It was just like a party. And that vibe translated to the record. We ended up going out to Malibu in California in this 15,000 square foot mansion. We got $400 a day on a credit card for food and booze. We used it all every day. We were having parties out there. We ended up spending $600,000 on the Anthem record, because we knew that this is our last hurrah, because there was rumblings of, YouTube was on the cusp. YouTube I think came out in 2006, but there was a lot of file sharing going on. Sales were starting to decline, and we're sitting there going, we're like a cat with 15 lives at this point. Like, we got signed to our second major label. Like, nobody hardly ever does that. So right. We fully took advantage of the position that we were in and just lived it up and had a blast. We ended up getting, for that budget, we ended up actually recording 2 records. We did a B-sides record that came out about a year later. And the Warner Brothers experience was great, because we ended up doing a 3rd record with them, a 2nd record, but with the B-sides record, it was 3 total in 2006. And then we got dropped. We didn't sell enough records, and it was kind of over at that point. We had been a band for 15 years. We weren't the new cute kid they were going to get on the cover of Spin magazine, but those 4 years that 4.5 years that we were on Warner Brothers, and those 3 records being spit through the Warner machine, we got some great tours. We went out on the Linkin Park Project Revolution tour. It was us, Linkin Park, Korn, Snoop Dogg, and The Used.
Oh, I remember that tour.
Yeah,
Okay.
in amphitheaters all across the country. And so being on Warner Brothers gave us, we also did the Good Charlotte Newfound Glory Arena tour. That was the Honda Civic tour. So there was a lot of press and promotion that it was the greatest thing that could have happened to us at that point. And then after that, we went independent. You know, we started putting out our own records for a while, and then we ended up going back to Fat in 2013 for a record, and then the last two projects we did were with Pure Noise Records. And at this point, you know, we love making music still together as a band. We just released a record a couple months ago. We do this for the love of it. It's still a career. It's how we feed our families. But, you know, we don't make any bones about it. I mean, you know, it's going to be 30 years next year that we've been doing this.
That's so cool.
We did everything that we set out to do. Everything now is just icing on the cake. It's just like, go out and have a good time, make people happy and have fun doing it. We're always going to create, we're always going to make cool merch. We're always going to do cool projects and cool, you know, do new music. But we also have the luxury of, if we wanted to go out and only play songs from the 90s, people would be stoked. We're a legacy band in that sense. We're, you know, and like a lot of people would look at that. And I remember as a kid, people, you know, and I even did, they'd laugh at like, oh, Lover Boys playing the State Fair. Do you know how much the State Fair pays those gigs?
A lot of money.
We've played them. I'll play every State Fair and corn dog friggin' festival across the United States. Just keep them coming. You know, they're fun. They feed you. They give you free beer. I mean, it's, you know, you got to look at this sometimes and really realize the ridiculousness of it all. You know, again, I was this kid from Port Charlotte that wound up there because my dad got laid off in Michigan. I had a choice of going to different universities, as did Roger. Vinny ended up following me to Gainesville. We met other people, just all these little pieces of the puzzle. And here I am in 2021 talking to somebody about my band that I started 30 years ago that, you know, it's
still releasing records, right?
Still releasing records. Yeah.
I know. And it's funny that you say that, you know, you guys could go out and play only songs from the 90s and people would show up and it's more like people would freak out. Like if you came in and said, we're going to do, you know, only, you know, Pezcore in entirety, like that would freak people out.
Yeah. And that you could combat yourself. I've seen bands, you know, we only want to play our new stuff, but I talk about this a lot on my podcast. You know, Metallica released a record a couple years ago. They'll always be my favorite band, and I always buy their new records, right? There's a song on their last record called Spit Out the Bone that's as good as any song they've ever written, but people don't have 30 years of memories attached to that song. It's never going to be Master of Puppets.
Sure.
Those memories are what people, and every time we do meet and greets, we'll be on tour, we'll meet fans. It's 9 out of 10 people, very rarely does someone come through and go, hey man, nice to meet you. And you sign something, they go on. It's always this, dude, I saw you in Cleveland in 99. I was in college. I met my wife. We had sex for the first time that night. I mean, it's the whole story, you know, it's those memories, you know, and that's what's special about it. And that's why I'll never look at it and go, God, they only want to hear stuff from the 90s. Thank God they want to hear stuff from the 90s. If they didn't, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, you know?
Right. I know, just to have that longevity in a band. And like, I think about these artists right now, I mean, I have a 13-year-old who's, you know, on TikTok and all this, and you talk to these artists that have like one song that blows up and it's like, will they have the longevity that, you know, bands like you have? You know, you have what, like 9 records? It's like,
I mean, they might. I mean, it just depends how they're managed and how they're run through the machine. You know, I always liken it to the old, I don't know if it was a book or maybe it was a book that turned into a cartoon or something. But it's the old story of the tortoise and the hare, you know, where, you know, it's like, we're just the tortoise, man. We're just kind of just cruising along. We never won any big awards or big accolades, but you know, a lot of people know us. People show up to see us, and they never leave bummed out that they didn't have a good time. You know,
that's amazing. Well, where were you guys? Because you like you said, you put out a record at the end of last year, a couple months ago. Where were you guys at, like, when this whole COVID thing happened? I know there was quite a few years in between See the Light and the Silver Linings record. Like, what were you guys up to
Yeah, so
prior to that all shutting
in
down?
2013 up to 2017, we were just on the road. We were still just touring. We were doing a lot of stuff in Europe. We
Hmm.
had got a new agent over there, and we were just setting up places in Europe, new places that we hadn't played. You know, we went to Hungary for the first time, just different. We're breaking into new territories.
Hmm.
2017, we released an EP, 7-song EP. It was almost it would have been an album, but we were in between tours. We recorded. We wanted to do something with Pure Noise, so we did have 7 songs come out. You know, almost a full length album in 2017 called Sound the Alarm,
Hmm.
and then just toured again. We did the Warped Tour in 2018. We did their final shows in 2019. And then in December of 2019, November and into early December, we recorded Silver Linings. And that record got mixed in January of 2020. It was supposed to come out in April, got pushed back to June, got pushed back to August, got pushed back to September, October. Finally, we said to Pure Noise, this has to come out this year. We've been sitting on it for a year. So it came out last December of 2020. And, you know, we're, you know, just now starting to get some offers. We have a couple show offers that came in for June, and that's where we're at.
That's amazing. And that must have been pretty, I mean, aside from the whole pandemic and everything, the horror that came with it, like, being a band like that, that must have been really kind of tough for you. I mean, you've been touring and you guys have been working at this and doing the record tour regimen for so long. And then now it all kind of came to a crashing halt. Was that kind of a tough pill to swallow as far as musically?
Well, I mean, you know, we did stuff as a band. We all have our home studios, so we did a couple songs in quarantine, where we each recorded our parts, and we put a song out, and we gave portions of each song to charity. It was
Mhm.
called the Lost at Home Sessions. So we did 3 songs last year for that. We did a live stream last year. We did a bunch of promotion for the record. You know, so we stayed as active as we could without playing live shows. And as you mentioned, I released my first book, Blast from the Past, last year.
Yeah.
Um, and it's an 18-month book campaign. It started in December of last year, 2020. And it's going all the way till June of 2022. So every 3 months, there's 2 new songs, 2 new 7-inches, and a digital stream that's coming out. So I'm doing 5 7-inches. The second one is going to be released next week.
Uh-huh.
And the final 7-inch will be released in February of 2022. So that'll be 10 songs total, 1 song per side. I'm holding 2 songs over that I'm then going to tack on to my first solo record, which is also called Blast from the Past. That'll come out in June of 2022. That'll be the end of the 1.5-year book campaigin. So
Oh, amazing.
every 3 months, there's some new music and some new merch items, and we reinvigorate the sales of the book through all of that.
I love that. I love it. Do you have all the songs done, or are you still working on?
I have six songs tracked, and I'm going back in June to record the final 6.
Amazing, amazing. So they're all written.
The other 6.
Oh, you still have 6 more after that. Okay.
No. I have to write the 6 that I'm recording in June, but I'm starting like next week.
Got you. I had a chance to hear the 2 that are coming out next week, and Never Surrender and Father Time. I love them, man. They're
Great.
So good.
Cool.
So good. Yeah. I wasn't sure what to expect, because I'm like, oh, is he gonna go? You know, sometimes they go, if you have a band like Less Than Jake, or if you're gonna go punk or gonna go a different direction. But I love it. It's amazing.
Well, that was the thing too. You know, like a lot of times with solo records, you don't want to sound anything like your band, but you know, I like high energy rock and punk rock. And also I wanted to kind of keep it centric to what I've sounded like over the years, because all the songs have to deal with the book. You know, Never Surrender, that song is about us never giving up. If you read the lyrics, it's about those early days, because the book takes you through the whole journey of the band. So, and then the song Father Time, the picture on the record is actually me and my dad. I'm in full costume. And so the song's called Father Time. It's about the time that my father gave me, but it's also the sands of time. Father Time's running out. My dad's getting older. He has Parkinson's now. His health is failing. So all the songs deal with the book directly.
I love that. That's such an amazing concept for the album, and just you guys are just so creative. I mean, you with your merch and just everything to do with the band. The fact that you save it all, like I love that. I know you're looking at this empty room. My family and I just moved to Nashville from San Diego, California, and I'm big on like toys and like getting all the little things that bands put out. So I just love that you have all of that in your studio there as well.
So many people from California have moved to Nashville in the last 10 years that California is no longer going to fall off into the sea, but Nashville is going to fall into China.
Yeah, there you go.
Nashville is going to fall to the other side of the earth.
Right. Yeah, so like we just moved here. So it's like I got my Blink poster representing where I grew up, and Halsey, because I love her.
It's easier to keep that room clean than it is mine. You might want to stick with the program there.
That's amazing. Well, Chris, dude, thank you so much for taking time to hang out with me today. I really, really appreciate it. I've been a huge fan of your band for a number of years.
It means a lot. Thank you. And, let Stephanie know when this is going to air, and, send me any specific ad mats. If you got the ones for stories, any links you want me to post, any copy that you want me to post, or, send it and I'll post it to my socials.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I have one more question for you before I let you go.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
I always say, find the right people and don't give it long. Find someone, play with them for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. You're going to know whether they have the same drive and the same goals and the same ambitions as you. And they could be the best player in the world, but if they're not thinking where you want to take the project next, you got to find that. I hit the lottery. I found people that were insane, had the ADD, like just, or not ADD, the OCD, like obsessive compulsive. We got to do this. And, that was the driving force of what I really feel. That's really what encompasses the story of Less Than Jake. I found the right people that had the right drive.